Hi there. In this video, we're going to talk about quantiles for group data and how to use a special formula to compute them. In statistics, quantiles refer to a type of descriptive statistics that summarizes the central tendency and variability of a data set. They are used to divide a data set into equal parts or groups. Some common types of quantiles include quartiles, deciles, and percentiles. Quartiles divide the data set into 4 equal parts. Deciles divide the data set into 10 equal parts. And percentiles, which divide the data into 100 equal parts. In a previous video, I showed you how to compute quantiles for ungrouped data. You can find the links in the description of this video. Let's use an example to demonstrate how to compute quantiles. AD medical students from Ahmadu Bello University College of Medical Sciences were randomly selected to determine if a relationship exists between the number of hours spent reading and examination performance. The data below is the grouped frequency distribution of the number of hours they spent reading in the week preceding their last exam. Question 1. Compute the third quartile, the third decile, and the 90th percentile. Question 2. How many hours did at most 75% of the students read? Question 3. How many hours did at most 30% of the students read? Now, this is easy peasy. First, let's understand this data. We have a sample of AD medical students, and here the variable we're dealing with is the time, which is the number of hours spent reading in 1 week. And this is grouped into 6 classes. So for the first class, this is the class that read for 10 to 19 hours, and only 6 students are in this class. For the second class, we had 12 students that read for 20 to 29 hours. Wow, we even had students that read 60 to 69 hours in the week prior to their last exam. That's serious. Now, in order to answer the questions, we will use a formula. There are several formulas that can be used, but I found this one to be the best. I call it the general quantile formula. It's very easy to memorize for students and even easy to understand. It's a special formula that allows you to compute any of the quartiles, deciles, or percentiles. So this is the general quantile formula. L plus Kn minus Cf divided by F, all in brackets, multiplied by W. Easy peasy. So in this formula, depending on the quantile you want to compute, K is equal to I divided by 4 if you're computing quartiles. K is I divided by 10 for deciles. And for percentiles, K is I divided by 100. I here is the quantile number, while L is the lower boundary of the quantile class. So either it's the quartile or the decile or the percentile class. Alright. Cf is the cumulative frequency of the preceding class. That's the class preceding the quantile class. F is the frequency of the quantile class. W is the class width. And last but not the least, N is the number of observations or the number of data points. Back to our question. This is the data of AD medical students. Let's put the formula here again. Now, seeing this formula, we will need to update the table so as to be able to accommodate all the elements. So we'll need to compute the lower class boundaries and the cumulative frequencies for us to be able to apply the formula. Now, right off the bat, we know our total number of observations is 80, right? Because the question says 80 students. Great. So let's add a new column and create the class boundaries. To get the boundary between the first class and the second class, the first class ends at 19 and the second class begins at 20, right? So what's the boundary between 19 and 20? We'll add 19 to 20 and divide it by 2. So we have a factor of 0.5 to form the boundaries. So we'll subtract 0.5 from the lower limits and add 0.5 from the upper limits of each class. So for the first class, we will have 9.5 to 19.5, and then 19.5 to 29.5, and so on. Easy, right? Then let's add the cumulative frequency column because we're going to need it. For the first class, it's 6. To get the cumulative frequency here, it will be the frequency of the first class plus the second class, since we say it's cumulative, right? So here we'll say 6 plus 12 and we'll have 18. Now, what this means is that the total frequency of students up to 29 hours is 18. Because 6 people read for 19 hours and 12 people read for 20 to 29 hours, right? The next one will add 6 plus 12 plus 25, and so we'll have 43. Then 61, 75, and lastly 80 if you do the maths, all right? Remember, as a check, the cumulative frequency of the last class must be the same as the total frequency of the observations that you have. Then you'll be sure that you're doing the correct thing. So you can see our total frequency was 80 and our last cumulative frequency is also 80. Good. Now, please, if you're doing this for an exam or test, make sure you label your tables correctly and put the title of your table and all the column headers. Now onto our questions. Let's compute the third quartile, Q3. Let's piece out all the elements of the formula first, shall we? Starting with K. K for quartiles is I divided by 4. What is I here? I is the quartile number. Since we're looking for the third quartile, then I is equal to 3. Now, if we were looking for the second quartile, for example, then I will be 2, and so on. So K is I divided by 4 for quartiles, and for the third quartile, this will be 3 divided by 4, and let's just leave it as a fraction for now. So we need to also determine the quartile class. That's the class that the quartile value falls, and that's the class that we'll be using for most of our calculations, because you can see for the formula, a lot of aspects of the formula relates to the quartile class. Alright, so we go to Kn. Kn will help us to determine the class that we'll be dealing with. Kn will help us to determine the quartile class. N in this formula is a number of students or the number of observations. And the question already told us that we had a sample of 80 students. Also, we have added it here and we have 80 already, right? So N is 80. Kn will thus be 3 over 4 times 80. So our Kn will be 60, right? Awesome. Next, to get to the quartile class, please pay attention here. This is where most students miss the mark. Kn has given us the position of our third quartile. It is on the 60th position, all right, because Kn is 60, right? So if we arrange all the values in order, we need to find the 60th value. Remember, we have 80 values, but we don't know those individual values because they are already grouped, all right? But we know that in the first class, there are only 6 values. So the first class carries the first 6 positions and the second class carries the next 12 positions, right? This means the second class will carry position 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18, right? So don't forget, we're looking for the 60th position because our third quartile is going to lie on the 60th position. So we know the 60th position is not in the first class because in the first class only 6 positions are there. We know it's not in the second class. What of the third class? Well, the third class takes positions from 19 to 43 because there are just 25 individuals in the third class. All right, so the third class 2 doesn't contain the 60th student. Now let's check the fourth class. The fourth class will contain the next 18 positions from 44 to 61, right? So our 60th position will be in this class. That's the class of 40 to 49. So what we're saying invariably here is that the 60th student or the 60th position read between 40 to 49 hours. Now, I went through all of this so you will understand how to get the quartile class, because a lot of students find it difficult to understand the quartile class. An easy way to do this, and you'll see this in many of your textbooks, is to select the class that has the cumulative frequency just greater than or equal to Kn. So anytime you compute your Kn, just look at the class that has a cumulative frequency immediately greater than Kn. So in this our example, Kn is 60. And if we look at all the cumulative frequencies, the one that is just above 60 is 61, right? So this is the class that the 60th position will lie, 40 to 49 class. Awesome. So all we've been trying to do is to identify the quartile class, and we have the quartile class now. And now that we know the quartile class, we need to identify the actual number of hours, right? Because we only have a range 40 to 49 hours. We want to know the actual number of hours that the 60th person read, because we're not just satisfied with just the class of 40 to 49. Now, to know the actual value, the formula is meant to help us to estimate that. So our L, which is the lower boundary of the quartile class, which is this class, is 39.5. F, which is the frequency of the quartile class, will be 18, right? You can see it here. The cumulative frequency is the cumulative frequency of the class preceding the quartile class. Please don't forget this, right? So that's this class that is coming before the quartile class. The 30 to 39 class is the class before the 40 to 49 class. So we just grab its cumulative frequency, right? That's 43. So CF is 43. And lastly, W, which is the class width, is what we need to find out now. Now listen carefully here too, because a lot of students also make mistakes here. Most students don't know the difference between the class interval and the class width. So they use the class interval instead of the class width. Now the class width is the difference between the upper class limit of one class and the upper class limit of the next class, or the difference between the lower class limit of one class and the lower class limit of the next class. So here we'll say 49 minus 39, which is 10, or 40 minus 30, which is 10. So our class width is 10. Now, if you want to understand the differences between these terminologies, please watch the video popping up in the card above. Now, let's put all of these into the formula. So our L is 39.5 plus Kn, which is 60, minus CF, which is 43, divided by F, which is 18, and now multiplied by 10. This will give us 39.5 plus 0.94 in bracket times 10. 35.9 plus 9.4, which will give us 48.9 hours. So our Q3 is 48.9 hours. Awesome. Great. So let's go on to find the third decile. All right. So I here will be 3. So K is I divided by 10 for deciles. So K is 3 over 10. And Kn will now be 3 over 10 times 80, since our n is 80, right? This is equal to 24. So our decile class will be the class with the cumulative frequency just greater than or equal to 24. So the next cumulative frequency is 43, right? So our decile class is the 30 to 39 class. All right. Our lower class boundary of the decile class is 29.5. Our frequency of the decile class is 25. And the cumulative frequency of the class preceding the decile class is 18. And our class width is 10 as usual, right? And now putting all of this into the formula, we will have 29.5 plus 24 minus 18 divided by the frequency, that's 25, and multiplied by the width, that's 10. So 29.5 plus 0.24 in bracket times 10 will give us 31.9 hours. Awesome. So our third decile, D3, is 31.9 hours. Great. So now on to the 90th percentile, P90. This one should be easy peasy. Using the same formula, I is 90, right? K is I over 100 for percentiles, which is 90 over 100. Kn is 90 over 100 times 80. This is equal to 72, right? So our percentile class will be, now pause the video here and see if you can get it. Well, I'm sure you got it right. All right, nice. The cumulative frequency just greater than or equal to 72 is 75. So our percentile class is here. That's the class of 50 to 59. All right, awesome. Our lower class boundary of the percentile class is 49.5. The frequency of the percentile class is 14. The cumulative frequency CF of the class preceding the percentile class is 61. And our class width is 10 as usual, right? W is 10. Now I'm putting all of these into the formula. We have P90 is equal to 49.5 plus Kn, which is 72, minus Cf, which is 61, divided by F, which is 14, and multiplied by our width, W, which is 10. So we have 49.5 plus 0.79 in brackets, right, times 10. We'll be having 49.5 plus 7.9, and so our P90 is going to be 57.4 hours. Super awesome. So our third quartile, Q3, is 48.9 hours. Our third decile, D3, is 31.9 hours. And our 90th percentile, P90, is 57.4 hours. Awesome. Now, on to the next question. How many hours did at most 75% of the students read? This is just indirectly asking us about our third quartile, because at the value of the third quartile, 75% of the students read at or below that value. So our Q3 is 48.9 hours, right? This means that 75% of the students read 48.9 hours and below. So the highest or the most that 75% of the students read was 48.9 hours. At most 48.9 hours, right? Great. Now the next question says, how many hours did at most 30% of the students read? Well, I'm going to leave this question for you to answer. Please put your answers in the comment section below and do not ignore this question, please. In my next video, God willing, I'll be explaining how to draw and interpret a box and whiskers plot, popularly known as a box plot. All right. Now, if you found this lesson useful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more explainer videos like this. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments and I'll attend to them as soon as possible. And as always, thanks for watching.